Welcome, age of vintage society. Peter Fonda was different from Henry Fonda, but they have some similarities. They look the same and talk the same. They even went to the same university and learned the trade at the same theatre. But while Henry Fonda didn't truly live as he couldn't express himself, Peter lived more and extra. He expressed himself and even got into trouble for it. It was this expression of himself that led him to the biggest blessing and curse of his life. So join us as we explore the cursed and blessed life of Peter Fonda. Peter Fonda, the curse of being Henry Fonda's son. Peter, please. Mr. Fonda died in 1982. Peter Fonda said in his sweet voice in an interview when he was at the British Film Institute. You would think it was his father that was speaking. However, that statement signified how much Peter Fonda didn't want to be like his dad. Even when the opportunity came for him to take on a role his father played, he rejected it. Well, the reason for this could be more than him trying not to be his dad and trying to escape the long shadow his father cast. However, if you follow his career, you can see his drive to different. His types of films were different, his roles and clothing were different, and he even changed how by wearing his hair down. But despite all this, Peter couldn't change his startling resemblance to his father. They have the same hair colour, and their eyes, cold, piercing and blue. Also the body frame too is quite similar. Both men look gangly, and Peter had a bulbous forehead like his dad. Still, Peter understood the man despite trying not to be him. He understood that his father was incapable of intense emotion, and that his father was shy. Peter even knew that the reason for this laid in the fact his father had an upbringing where he couldn't talk when he suffered an injury or was in pain. This limited his dad's range as an actor. Surprisingly, he and Peter are similar in this regard. "I'm a driver," Peter said in an interview, and it was this mentality that drove the choices of the films he was part of. While his father may have lived through the lines that film writers wrote for him, Peter lived with the rules he set for himself. This meant that he didn't follow any of the normal rules that actors were meant to follow, so studio executives labelled him as one of the leaders of the counterculture. It was their response to the utter disregard that Peter showed them, and there was that bit about the substances he used and him not being secretive about it. Not many people appreciated that a leading man engaged in stuff like that. The man's counterculture identity was a defining part of him. He even got into trouble because of it during the Sunset Strip riots. The Sunset Strip was the unofficial capital of counterculture. It was usually filled with crowds, and they could be rowdy. People began to have issues with them, and it got to a point where the city attempted to place strict curfews to limit the number of youths at the Strip. The move led to a riot, which Fonda was part of, and he got arrested for participating. No wonder mainstream Hollywood rejected him. They didn't like troublemakers, and Peter was trouble personified. However, his rejection set him on the path of unique greatness and doom. When the mainstream rejected him, Peter pursued other means of getting the satisfaction he wanted as an actor. He did some shifts, working for an independent film director, Roger Corman. Working for this director introduced him to the biker gang genre, but in the end he ended up being the man in control of his own destiny, and that destiny was Easy Rider. Easy Rider was a masterpiece and a commercial success too. It was also his doom. Easy Rider was a film about guys who made a boatload of money dealing with illegal substances and travelled searching for the truth. They encounter terrifying experiences that make them contemplate their presence in America and if they will ever achieve peace. The film depicted the struggle for acceptance and the journey of truth most people face. The plot hooked the audience, and it became a commercial and critical success. The film also became a cult classic and has transcended time to this time, where younger audiences relate to the film. Making the film wasn't easy for Peter. Sure, he liked riding motorcycles. It was one of his life's passions, and according to Peter, it gave him direction when he needed focus. The man rode motorcycles so much that he got inducted into the Motorcycle Hall of Fame. But his love of motorcycles wasn't enough to make working on Easy Rider easier. First, when Peter conceived the film idea and discussed it with film studios and producers, no one wanted a part of it, not even his friend Roger Corman, who was a notable personality in the indie film sector. Well, Corman regretted not working on the film with Fonda, but honestly, no one should blame him for his decision at the time. Peter didn't exactly inspire confidence. Peter and his friend Dennis Hopper began to write the screenplay for the film in Terry Southern's basement, but they couldn't finish it. In fact, according to some people, what they wrote couldn't even pass off as a screenplay and would be better referred to as an outline. What happened was, when they began to write, they got distracted and just went with the flow. However, it seemed Terry got too distracted and claimed to have written the whole screenplay for himself, and then he only added Dennis and Peter's names because they begged him. If you think this is the last of the film's ownership drama, you thought wrong. There's still more to come on it. Preparing for the film too came with troubles of its own. The budget was ridiculously low, with Fonda and his gang only raising $384,000 to film Easy Rider. Still, the show must go on, and it did. Peter began to get ready for his role. He wanted his costume, which had the American flag, to look worn to fit his profile in the film, so Fonda began to drive around the city to achieve this effect, but it got him into trouble. Police stopped him multiple times, suspicious of him because he wore a jacket that bore the American flag, but that was the list of their troubles. Due to their money, or lack of it, they couldn't hire a good crew. They had to hire random people off the street to help them with the film. Unfortunately, it wasn't a pleasant experience for these people, or Peter himself. Dennis was a menace. He didn't get along well with everyone, not even his close friend Peter. Dennis was a man filled with suspicions and anger, so they lost the people they hired as fast as they hired them. Some of these people weren't wholly gentle too. They recorded Dennis's antics to show that he was pretty unhinged. The problems kept coming. This time it was Fonda harming himself and a cast member. Jack Nicholson was one of the Easy Rider cast, and he played the lawyer who tagged along for the ride. However, the ride wasn't so smooth. Fonda's bike had a raised handlebar, which only bikers with experience used. It wasn't a problem for Fonda. He had been riding bikes for a long time, but when Nicholson joined Peter on the motorcycle, he caused an accident that injured Fonda, making the counterculture icon break a rib. It wasn't the only time Fonda would get injured on the set of the film. One other time during filming, Fonda broke his back. Well, Peter wasn't a stranger to such accidents. When he was younger, in boarding school, he threw his back. But Easy Rider wasn't all bad news. It helped Fonda reconcile with the death of his mum. The scene where he was talking to a statue of a woman had him reach deep and confront the pain he had locked away. The film also allowed Fonda to help jumpstart his daughter's acting career. The film also had some relaxing moments. The substances used in the movie were mostly real, and there were scenes where Fonda and the remaining cast members had to use them. Now they not only had to use them, but they also had to act with those things in their system. It worked well, as they were able to portray perfectly people under the influence. However, it meant they wouldn't be able to remember their lines. Each character was just making stuff up as they went, except for Jack Nicholson. Jack was surprisingly the only person who could recall all of his lines despite his mind not being clear. He didn't need to make stuff up. He was just that brilliant. No wonder he later won an Oscar in his career. With this kind of focus, nothing could have stopped him. However, just as Easy Rider giveth, it also taketh, and what it taketh was Peter's freedom and a pivotal relationship he had built over the years. His only saving grace was Ulee's gold. Born in New York City on February 23, 1940, Peter Fonda, son of Henry Fonda, followed his father's footsteps and became a notable actor with many iconic films. However, not all of these films were commercially successful, but he did have some great movies like Easy Rider. Easy Rider is Peter Fonda's most successful, or one of them. Ulee's Gold is another great contender for Peter Fonda's best film. Ulee's Gold didn't have Fonda going on a spiritual journey, chasing freedom or featuring any well-known and worn counterculture tropes. It was a family film, sort of. Fonda played a widowed father who served during the Vietnam War and is now a beekeeper. The stakes became higher when his character had to protect his broken family from criminals. Fonda would eventually comment that the character was his most well-written character. Yuli's Gold was Fonda's saving grace, and Fonda treated it specially. For the film, he wore his father's old watch for luck, which was fitting because Henry Fonda was an amateur beekeeper. The film helped him connect with the memory of father who had passed at the time. The film also showed the world that Peter Fonda wasn't a one-trick pony. Yuli's Gold destroyed whatever limitations people thought Fonda had as an actor. Easy Rider boxed him despite causing him severe injuries. Due to the film's success, everyone wanted Peter to be the bike-riding counterculture guy. The movie generated so much buzz that it also inspired Universal Pictures to give indie filmmakers modest budgets to make films like Easy Rider. Everyone wanted a piece of Fonda's pie, even Fonda himself. The next set of films he appeared in had him leaning into the counterculture image. It was the only thing people wanted from him, and truthfully Peter leaned into the stereotype and tried to give the people exactly that. However, not all of the next films had that Easy Rider commercial success. It wasn't that they were bad films. The one he directed, The Hired Hand, was a brilliant anti-western where he acted as a drifter who returned home to the wife he had long abandoned. But you could say that American Graffiti, with George Lucas directed, resonated more with people and stood out from the series of indie films that came out after Easy Rider. The stereotype wasn't Easy Rider's only gift to Fonda. He lost his relationship with his friend Dennis Hopper too. The two were close and were in-laws as Brooke Haywood, Peter's stepsister, married Dennis Hopper. Even Peter intervened during Hopper's marital troubles. All of this didn't matter when Dennis's alleged paranoia, or as Peter called it, megalomania, got a hold of him. Dennis was suspicious of Peter and was sure Peter stiffed him out of Easy Rider's profits and recognition as the film's writer. It got to a point where Dennis sued his friend. It became a big court case, but the outcome wasn't what Dennis wanted. Dennis lost the case along with his friendship with Peter. It wasn't that Peter was tired of his friend Dennis. He tried to keep in touch, but Hopper wasn't one to let go of a grudge in sickness and in health. When Hopper was sick in 2010, he didn't allow his old buddy to see him, although Fonda made numerous attempts. Hopper's response was a resounding no. Even in death, Dennis still said no. Dennis Hopper had dropped instructions that Peter or any other cast mate from Easy Rider should not be allowed to attend his funeral, not that it stopped Peter from attending anyway. However, when Peter got to the church and wanted to enter, Hopper's family told him to turn back. Pity it ended that way between Peter and Hopper, but Peter was used to losing his relationship with people dear to him. Peter didn't truly learn how to keep relationships, and it must have been something he got from his dad. He and his sister rarely see each other, but this could result from the two having busy schedules. Peter is fiercely loyal to his sister and usually defends her after she courts trouble. Like Peter, Jane had a stubborn streak and was active in politics. This meant she would be at the receiving end of some choice insults and even propaganda. To defend his sister from her detractors, Peter ruined a public poster insulting her, and he got arrested for it. His sister wasn't the only person his schedule stole him away from. He also became distant from his two children, although the actor revealed that he tried to make up for it by showing love when he was around. So the situation wasn't like him and his father, as he could express love while his father couldn't. The relationship Peter lost that deeply scarred him the most would be the one with his mother. When he was around 6, his father shipped him off to boarding school, and when he came home, he went to their maternal grandmother, who took care of him and his sister in their mother's absence. Their mother had committed herself to an asylum, and she took her own life there in 1950. Peter didn't know the nature of his mother's death. His father told him and his sister that their mother had a heart attack. Later, people found out the true nature of their mother's death when his sister told him. His mother's death almost broke his mind. Next Christmas, after her death, he stacked a chair full of presents for his mother, much to Jane's concern. And this wasn't chilling enough. Peter almost joined his mother. Somehow, Peter got a gun when he celebrated his 11th birthday, and in a freak accident he shot himself in the stomach. Henry Fonda rushed his son to the hospital, and Peter had to spend months recovering. The wound healed, and in the future Peter tried to use the scar as a tool to teach an acquaintance. What happened was the Beatles invited Peter to a party, and George Harrison was having a meltdown, thinking he was dying. Peter tried to calm and comfort George that he wasn't dying. Then, to assure George, Peter showed him his bullet wound to prove to George that he had the experience of dying and that George wasn't dying. Well, Peter should have left comforting George to the professionals, as what he did made everything worse. John Lennon asked Peter to leave the house, but the event inspired the Beatles to write and sing the song She Said, She Said. It wasn't only the Beatles who could make music. Peter also did too, in 1968 when he recorded November Night. However, his music career didn't go too far. While his music career might not have taken off, Peter Fonda lived on his own terms. He used his earlier childhood vulnerability to create for himself. The man even tried to boost his daughter's career by giving her a head start. Peter might not have been as available as he would like to be for his children, but he showed up for them when he could. Perhaps this was why he died, with a smile on his face. When he was 79 years old, Peter succumbed to complications with his breathing, caused by lung cancer. He left a mark in Hollywood, and no one will easily forget him. Next up, the darkest secrets behind Michelle Phillips' stardom. Get ready for behind-the-scenes drama, scandal and gossip that will leave you breathless. See you there. Click now.